This week's Torah portion is Savo and takes us that much closer to the holiday of Rosh Hashana, which is biblical New Year. It's the New Year for all of mankind. We have to understand that it applies to every single human being. It's Jewish in the sense that the Jewish people are responsible for carrying the knowledge of Rosh Hashana through the year, through the history, and the knowledge of Rosh Hashana to every single human being. But it's something that every human being has to know. He's created in God Almighty's image, and Rosh Hashana is his day of judgment. So we can really take this to heart when we learn this week's Torah portion. We see what are traditionally called the curses. But, God is misperceived as someone that's coming out to get people. And in reality, if you pay attention, you see God's loving kindness, how he reminds us again and again. Moses, our teachers, reminding us again and again, just stay on track. Don't get distracted. Don't go after all the sights and scenes and scenery of the world. Just stay on track in the service of God Almighty. That's all we need to do. It's very simple. But the consequences are that if a person does not follow God Almighty's instructions, then life becomes rocky and bumpy. And that is the natural consequences, the consequences of the way that God Almighty set the world. He's no more seeking to get a person than God Almighty is seeking to get a person who refuses to pay attention while he's riding a bike and decides that he wants to try to defy gravity, and then finds that it's a painful consequence. That's what we have. We are the masters of choice, and we get to choose at every instant, to choose based on our current estimation of the situation and our future projection of what the consequences are going to be. And that's what gives us the ability to see the future consequences. So we have to make choices accordingly. So when we look at these negative outcomes of the consequences of what our choices are, we see that unfortunately they've happened through history. And we have a choice to not let those things happen. And one of the people in our generation who have spent so much time to urge us to make sure to stay on track is the Lubavitcher Rebbe, saying we must reach every single human being. If you don't like the way the world looks around you, if you start to open the newspaper, not that I'm saying you should open the newspaper, but perhaps you overhear some news, you will start to wonder if not some of these curses and the descriptions are not coming true all over the world. The level of fear, the chaos, the people that are, the fear is the last of the curses. Just the person is so stuck in his fear. He's afraid of the air. He's afraid of everyone else. He's afraid. He's just full of fear. That is a curse. But that comes from not being connected to God Almighty. God Almighty is saying, listen, wake up, wake up. Each one of these is a loving reminder from God that our thinking is off track. And when our thinking's off track, our feelings are off track, and our actions are off track, our speech is off track, and we can get on track right away with the next thought to realize that we are connected to God Almighty. So the Bible chapter is telling us, don't let the world fall apart. Take the time, make the effort to put into the world, just like God Almighty is creating it from nothing every single instant, put the effort in to keep the momentum and the direction going in the direction of building. Don't let it be pulled down by people who are distracted from the truth. So this is the call of our times, and we're standing before Rosh Hashana. Our job is to bring every single human being to recognize God Almighty. And I want to show you an example of how we took a talk from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, saying it's our mission to make sure every single human being this Rosh Hashana knows that it's the day of judgment for him, for every single person, and it's a time to reconnect to God Almighty. We're making a flyer to distribute to 60,000 people in 11,000 households here in Passaic, New Jersey. And I want to ask you to read it, and I want to ask you to take the time to think about how you could emulate this in your neighborhood. I want you to take the time to think about who you know in northern New Jersey who is within an hour or 2 hours drive, that you could send them a copy of this and you can encourage them to attend. And I also want to ask you to take out your wallets and be generous to help support the cost, over $10,000 in costs that it takes to pull off publicity like this following the Rebbe's instructions. And what I would like to ask you to do is participate in each one of those three ways. Make sure that everyone knows about this. Everyone knows that God Almighty wants them in this world, and he wants more people in this world. He wants more of each one of the people that is currently in the world. So this is our job. It's such an exciting job, such an incredible opportunity to live life to its fullest. That life is full of joy, a life full of love, and a life full of expansion. And expansion is expanding the knowledge of God Almighty in the world. That is our job. And we see that the things that are most important are the things that we have to bring to completion. We have to bring them to complete fulfillment, that every single human being is going to know God Almighty. And that is what we have the opportunity to do right now. Got 11 days left till Rosh Hashana. When you're going to be watching this video, maybe it's 10 days left. But the closer it gets to Rosh Hashana, the greater sense of urgency that we can work with to let every single human being know. Take this video, translate it into other languages, take the flyer, translate it into other languages, make something at your house, at your neighborhood park, at your synagogue, wherever you can gather people together to let them know this incredible, incredible time that we're living in, that this is Rosh Hashana. There's a loving creator that's looking at every single one of his creations lovingly to see how they're doing and how they could be enhanced and brought to a greater level of connection to God Almighty, to have a greater level of joy, greater level of calm, greater level of tranquility, greater level of love in their lives, greater level of joy and pleasure from the good things in life, from family, from children, and from the knowledge of God Almighty. And God willing, we'll see the fulfillment of all this when every single human being is going to recognize God Almighty, and that's going to be Mashiach. That's going to be the redemption of the entire world, and may we experience it now. Good Shabbos.